Hello and welcome to today's webinar on why and how JD Edwards customers are moving to cloud. Customer Stories by Redfaire. We thank you for taking the time to attend today and hope that you will find this time useful. My name is Hayden and I work with UK Oracle User Group to deliver webinars such as this one. Today we are very grateful to welcome Christian Fronteras, our host from Redfaire. Should you wish to get in contact with Christian, his email is currently on the screen and will be at different points throughout the webinar. There's also a link on the screen to find out more about Redfaire and how they can help you, which you will learn throughout the webinar itself. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a bit about what we as UK Oracle User Group do to support you all, our community. We deliver content through webinars, meetups, events and conferences, all relating to Oracle applications and technologies. Whether it's a problem with your technologies, a latest update, or to make better informed decisions when deciding your journey, we as a community can help you. Being independent from Oracle does mean we deliver unbiased content and do provide honest solutions to your problems. On average, we throw around 50 events a year. We have over 700 organisations as members and have over 750 resources for you to use at your own leisure. Whether you want to meet like-minded individuals, hear from the experts, or put forward content to help others, we are the user group that can help you. We are very excited to announce our Applications Unlimited event, which is on Reading on the 18th and 19th of June. Currently, we are in the process of calling for content, and if you or a peer wishes to speak at the event, please do just follow the link at the bottom of the screen to submit your papers. We are hosting streams on Transition to Cloud, EBS, Hyperion, JDE, and PeopleSoft. If you would like to know more about membership or what other events we have coming up throughout the year, please don't hesitate in getting in contact with me. My email is in the bottom right hand of the screen and you will receive an email from me post-webinar, so you can just respond to that. Now, before I hand over to Christian, just a few housekeeping rules. If you do have any questions, please do just type them into the question box. They will come through to me and I will hand them through to Christian. If you're having trouble hearing or viewing the screen, please do just type in I can't hear or I can't see, and we will try and resolve the problem for you. This webinar is also being recorded, which means you will get a link to our YouTube channel or our and our library, which will allow you to view the webinar again and share it with your peers or colleagues. Included in that post-event email will be Christian's contact details and the Redfaire link as well, so you can get in contact with them should you have any questions you want to reach out directly for. Without further ado, I will hand over to Christian now.
Thank you very much, Hayden.
You're more than welcome.
Right, okay. So you should be able to see my screen. Hayden, can you just confirm that you can see my screen?
All is well.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you very much. So let's get started. First of all, thank you very much for joining, and I really do appreciate the time you're going to give me here. I'm going to be talking about why and how JD Edwards customers are moving to the cloud. And I think those things are I need to be quite clear in the way that I present those. So why are customers moving to the cloud and how are they doing that? My name is Christian Fronteras. I represent Redfaire Global Support, part of Redfaire. We are an Oracle Platinum partner and an MSP, a managed service provider, meaning we're able to take you on that journey to the cloud. I'm going to put this presentation into 5 sort of sections. Why are JD Edwards customers looking at the cloud? Why now? I think it's important to understand why is now a good time to do this. How are JD Edwards customers using the cloud, and some real world examples, so some case studies, and I've got a collection of existing Redfaire customers who use JD Edwards on the cloud and why and how they're doing that. And then how Cloud9 helps customers leverage the cloud. So it's not just about cloud, there needs to be a level of service beyond that. And then I'll take questions at the end. And as Hayden said, if you could just send those through as and when you wish, then we'll answer those at the end. So first of all, why do you think JD Edwards customers are looking at the cloud? So there's some questions here that we can answer. You can have a little think about this, but these are the typical typical answers we get when I ask that question to an audience. So because we're going to get left behind, there's a sense that other people are starting to move to the cloud, that everybody's talking about the cloud. And if you're not talking about the cloud, maybe you're a laggard, maybe you're falling behind the times. Another reason might be that your company has introduced what's called a cloud-first strategy. One of our customers, Pizza Express, that's not featured in this presentation but is using the cloud, has exactly that. Every time they apply for funding to fund IT projects, business system projects, they have to explain why they're not looking at a cloud service provider to deliver that service. A cloud-first strategy is something we're seeing increasingly become important in the boardroom. Because my JD Edwards guru has been given a gold watch. JD Edwards has been around a long time. I'm sure you probably all know JD Edwards stands for Jack, Dan and Ed, all of whom are long retired, one of which has actually passed away. The business was started in 1977. Some of us have been working on JD Edwards for a very long time, and resources are becoming harder and more scarce to find, and I'm sure you've seen that. So another reason why customers are looking at the cloud is because it maybe gives them access to resources they are struggling to recruit and retain themselves. Because they believe that disaster recovery is built into the cloud. Surely the cloud is completely foolproof and backed up, and it becomes somebody else's problem. And that's actually another reason in itself. Often it's because hardware needs a refresh. For many JD Edwards customers, then they are now at a point where the infrastructure that they have running their JD Edwards environment is old, is maybe is in need of a refresh, and they've withheld any of that CapEx spend historically because they weren't certain about the future for JD Edwards, but now have got to a point where they need to do something. I mentioned that earlier because it becomes somebody else's problem and I get all the credit. In other words, if I move things to the cloud, all of that worry about infrastructure, all that worry about making sure that the lights stay on becomes somebody else's responsibility. I get a service level agreement and I manage a supplier. And finally, people believe that moving to the cloud, it surely must be about cost. It must be cheaper. I'm not going to dispel or agree with any of these myths. These are just typical reasons why customers, JD Edwards customers today, are looking at the cloud. And if you have any reasons that are not listed here, then I've been keen to understand those so that I can incorporate those into future discussion. So why Oracle Cloud and why now? Okay, so I'm not really so much going to be talking about Oracle Cloud, but let's just talk about why JD Edwards really and why now. So first of all, as you may know, I'm sure you do know, JD Edwards is now supported and developed until at least 2030. In other words, the 9.2 release of the software has a roadmap for development through to at least 2030 and will be supported through till at least that date, meaning that in the likelihood it will be extended out beyond 2030. But today, Lyle Exel has stood at Open World and at the JD Edwards conferences and said that JD Edwards will continue to be supported and developed until 2030. That's 10 years away, 11 years away, which is a long time. So with that statement, many customers have said, well, actually, JD Edwards works for my business. I don't need the disruption of replacing JD Edwards, so I'd like to continue to operate JD Edwards for a period of time until I make a decision as to what the next step of my journey is going to be. There's rich new functionality being brought into the 9.2 release. Orchestrator, as an example, brings tremendous ability for a customer to customize without modification things like the user interface, to simplify forms, to design the way menus and E1 pages are presented to the user, to use notifications to automatically send alerts to people within the organization when certain events happen. I mean, it's a tremendous technology, and at the conference, at the UK User Group conference, AJ Sofrano is going to be there talking specifically about some of that new functionality that they're continuing to develop. The user experience, UX1 as it's known, and mobile applications, again, are becoming something that customers are wanting to take advantage of. But that 2030 life is a significant factor as to why JD Edwards customers are now investing in their infrastructure. And there's more innovation. It's not just technology coming out of the JD Edwards development teams in Denver. There's a lot of feature function. For example, I highlight a couple of examples there. I've talked about notifications. There's lease accounting for IFRS 16 compliance. I talk about joint venture management, a new accounting module within JD Edwards for specifically managing joint ventures, so cash calls and division of interest, all of that reporting. But some of this functionality isn't big functionality. To give you an example, in the latest release on 9.2, and some of the latest code changes that have come through, I now have the capability to determine that a reversing journal should reverse automatically on the first day of the next period or on the last day of the next period. For years, for as long as I can remember, it's only ever been available to reverse automatically on the first day of the next period. So functionality like that has been fed back to the JD Edwards teams is getting into the product. And we're not having to wait for a release 9.3 or 9.4 in order to get those advantages. So let's talk about how customers are using the cloud and why they're, and how they're using the cloud. And part of this is also why they chose it. So first of all, one question which often comes up is the cloud secure? And I want to give you an example. Xellia Pharmaceuticals. Xellia Pharmaceuticals are a fully validated, FDA-approved pharmaceutical company based out of Copenhagen, in Denmark, but with global operations. They produce life-saving drugs, the kind of drugs that you inject intravenously to save people's lives. Because of that, they operate at the highest levels of validation. You can imagine security is incredibly important for them. So they use JD Edwards Enterprise One. They're currently on release 9.1, and they deliver this application to users throughout the US, Europe, and India. And you'll see that they've integrated their JD Edwards system into their Active Directory domain. So in other words, nobody can access their JD Edwards system unless they have access to the Xellia network and have an account on the Xellia network. So that's nothing to do with the cloud. That is Xellia making sure that just because they're deploying on the cloud, they're not bypassing their own security services. Data centers and service providers are subject to physical audits, just as they would if it was a data center that they were putting their own equipment into. Xellia can send their auditors to the data centers where their applications are hosted, and they can audit those data centers, and they have done that. They insist on signed change requests, and they're implemented using standard operating procedures and include installation qualification. For Xellia, any change that gets implemented, not only must it be signed, it must have been tested, and there must be a rollback position. Data is replicated in real time to facilitate fast data recovery. Xellia have deployed it in the Oracle Cloud in London and in Amsterdam, where Amsterdam is their production system. In the event of a disaster in Amsterdam, the system automatically fails over to London. The data within the network and the storage on the disk is all encrypted. So even if somebody managed to hack into the Oracle Cloud fabric somehow, the data is all encrypted and is safe. Where typically when we see these systems deployed on premise, this data isn't encrypted. They're held in an Oracle database, for example, and if you have a username and a password to that database, or you have access to the disk level, you'll be able to see that data. So a level of encryption that doesn't normally exist. And artificial intelligence is being used to look for threat detection and isolation. So Oracle will talk about this as machine learning, and if you come to, I've got another webinar on the 28th of this month where we have Kevin Lee from Oracle talking about that, and you can learn more about how Oracle are securing their network. What about hidden costs? So there's a big fear that actually with cloud, maybe it looks cheap, but in the event that sorry about the squeaking door in the background there. In the event that you download a lot of data, maybe you'll get a nasty bill. This is an example of Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut restaurants who enjoy a fixed monthly cost for both their application delivery and support. Their system is always on. JD Edwards is always available to their users. It's completely unlimited in use. They can use the service as much as they wish, and they get 0 overage charges. They haven't had any overage charges since they went live on the cloud in 2014. In other words, they have the same predictable monthly cost. That makes planning and budgeting far easier. What about data ownership? At Maynooth University, based in Ireland, they made a decision because of the UK's decision to